There once was a man who had it all. Nice clothes, fancy car, well-paying job, until one day he lost his job and he lost everything. He no longer had fancy clothes, a nice car, or many friends. And when he would try to go to the stores he would normally shop at, the shopkeeper said, "We're sorry, sir, you're no longer welcome here." The man said, "But I'm a paying customer." The shopkeeper said, "We're sorry, sir, this is private property. Please leave." So the man would leave and he would go to other stores to buy the things he needed, sometimes walking long distances without his car, carrying heavy items just to get the things he needed. He began to not look as great as he once had, and he began to appear as though he was probably in poor health. Still, he would see as many friends, old neighbors, former colleagues. They would walk by and pretend as if they didn't even know him. They would walk by and they wouldn't even speak. Some would even turn and go in another direction. So one day the man bumped into a stranger. The stranger said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir," and then kept walking. The man noticed the stranger dropped some dollar bills on the ground and said, "Excuse me, sir, you dropped some money." The stranger said, "Oh, thank you, I hadn't even noticed." The stranger then looked at the man again, saw his poor appearance, his probable poor health, and said, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind telling me a little about yourself? What's your story?" So the man told the stranger about how he'd once had it all, and then he'd lost it. He told him how he'd once had his fancy car, many friends, well-paying job, but since then, he no longer had friends who would speak when they passed him on the road. Shopkeepers turned him away, and life had become hard. "I'm sorry to hear this," the stranger said. "Would you mind coming to the church I attend this weekend and speaking to our congregation?" The stranger gave the man the address. The man agreed, and they parted ways until Sunday. The man walked into the church with his poor appearance, poor health, looking around until he saw the stranger in the back row. The stranger sat, covered in a jacket, a top hat on his head, and nodded as he saw the man walk into the room. The stranger then pointed to the front of the room where the podium stood and gestured for the man to walk to the front of the room. The man walked to the front of the room, looking at the congregation as the churchgoers stared, probably wondering why he was there in such poor condition. And the man walked to the front of the room, stood at the podium, and said, "Some of you may know me. I am looking around this room, and I am familiar with many of you. Some of you may be my friends, former colleagues, may own the businesses where I used to shop. I used to have everything. Then one day, I lost it all." The man then went on to explain to the churchgoers his story, telling them how things had changed and life had become hard for him. When he was done, the stranger, who had been listening in the back of the room along with everyone else, stood and walked to the front of the room where the man was standing at the podium. The stranger took off his top hat, and beautiful long braids fell down his back. He took off his coat to reveal just a simple plain shirt and pants, nothing particularly special. And his healthy brown skin appeared to be glowing. In fact, there was light all around him. He spoke to the congregation and said, "I am disappointed to hear this man's story and to learn that he has been shunned in your town. Instead of helping him, you abandoned him. Instead of trying to understand his situation, you looked the other way. I am disappointed to see that you celebrate yourselves often instead of trying to help others and care for each other. I am disappointed to see that you have removed yourselves so far from that which you seek, even in this very room. How did you think I would come to you? Did you think I would be wearing your fancy clothes? Did you think I would be driving a fancy car? Did you think I would be wishing to be one of your many friends?" And while he was speaking, light began to shine through the windows, inside the entire room, behind the man, around the man. It looked like he was the light himself. "Now," he said, "now then," to the congregation, "who among you would deem yourselves worthy enough to come with me?" The end.